Great. Right now we solved the circular dependency problem with this annotation. Now, if you are working, this is quite a bonus lesson if you're working for an enterprise application where you have a lot of custom logic and you need to apply the DTO pattern, data transfer object. Maybe you have to think about a different solution. If you implement the DTO pattern, you'll have a lot more of flexibility, and we can start by make this example. Please keep in mind that after this example, I'll show you that everything's working, and then we'll go back to this solution. So this JSON identify info. So this is quite a bonus lesson if you want to start with these custom DTO models. And let's start by creating we'll start with a package. We'll call this DTO, and inside this DTO we are going to replicate this curse. We'll call this DTO, and we want to replicate the student, and we call this DTO. Great. Now please remember to remove this annotation, remember to remove this, and the ID you can keep the many to many, and here we go with curse DTO, and inside the curse DTO we do the same, remove this entity, we don't need this anymore, remove the ID annotation, and here we go with student DTO. Great. Now you have a lot of possibilities to automatically map between the curse entity and the DTO, curse DTO. You can do this manually, so you create an interface, you define your own custom mapper, but usually you should look for something like map struct. This is great. This is a nice way to automatically handle the mapping logic, or you can use a ModelMapper, and yeah, you can add this and use a ModelMapper in this tutorial, just because this is a simple example, just a bonus lesson on how to handle the mapping logic. I'm going to use ModelMapper because it's easier to set up. You can click on getting started, and basically you have to add this dependency inside your POM. So let's go in the POM right here and add this dependency. Click on load Maven changes. Great. Now what we want to set up, here you'll find a little guide that you can follow. I'm going to simplify this logic for you. I like to create a package. I call this package mapper. Usually here you can have your custom mapper or your mapping logic, and control click Java class. I'm going to create a ModelMapper config, and here we are going to use the configuration annotation, and here we can use a bin and public ModelMapper. We are going to define a constructor, return new ModelMapper. Great. Now that we have our ModelMapper, it's time to move inside the service. So let's start with the student. Student service. Great. Here we want to inject our bin, so final ModelMapper. Great. And we want to pass the model mapper right here. Here we want to do this model mapper equal model mapper. Great. And now let's change the logic just for the student by ID. Now here we want to return a student DTO, and here we need to map the student. We are going to invoke ModelMapper, and if you notice, you have a map object source type destination type. So object source will be student, and here we need to use student DTO class. Great. Right now we have one related problem. Of course, this is because here we are using a normal student entity, and student, and here we go. We are ready to test our application. Now let's check what the result will be. If you test the application right now, you still have the circular dependency problem because we didn't do a custom solution to solve the problem. So if we're going to invoke this send, here we go, we have the same problem. We still have this recursive logic, which is quite annoying. Now, how to solve this? There are an endless amount of possibilities. You can use some annotation, you can change this logic, you can create your own custom mapper. Now, to solve this problem in a simple way, it's not the best way to solve the problem, it's just a way that you can use in some situation. You can have, for example, now we are testing the student get API, we are invoking this student, we are retrieving this student DTO, and our model mapper is mapping inside course DTO, and course DTO have a list of student DTO, so we still have this circular dependency problem. We want to change the logic a little bit. We want that student DTO contain a list of course DTO, but this course DTO should be without the students. So course no student DTO. Great. And here we want to remove this field. So right now, if we go inside students and we do no students DTO, if we restart the application, stop and rerun, now we don't have a circular dependency. So if you, great, the application started. If you retry your API, now you have just one course. Let's do the same for courses. If you want to manage the inverse request, you need a course DTO and you need a student no courses DTO. Great. Inside the student no courses DTO, of course, you want to remove the courses, and from course you want to reference no courses DTO. And right now we still need to modify the course service. So inside of this we need to apply the same logic, private final model mapper. We want to inject this field, model mapper, and here we want to do this model mapper equal model mapper, and here we can do map function course model mapper dot map course and course DTO dot class, and of course here we need course DTO. And the related problem, like before, we have this course, we want a course DTO, and we want the same here. Great. Now if we restart the application again and we try the get mapping ID for the course controller, we'll see that we have only the course and one student, and we don't have the circular dependency anymore. Now we are going back to the previous solution because I don't want to spend a lot of time to handle this logic, to modify things, but this is such a powerful pattern because you can, of course there's a better way to handle this circular dependency. You can change things a little bit, but imagine that the ID for a course or maybe for a student is the fiscal code, okay? In Italy, this is like your personal identification, and maybe you don't want to show this to the front end. This isn't nice to have in an application. You don't want never disclose personal information that are not publicly available. So you can, for example, erase this ID. Even in course, you can erase this ID. And right now, if you restart the application one more time and you are going to invoke the API, automatically you will have an object without the ID. So if I invoke this send, you don't have the course ID. Of course, I should have hide even inside the other DTO. So for example, if you want to completely hide the ID, you have to remove it even from here and from student no courses, of course. Otherwise, you will still have the ID somewhere. As I said before, this isn't a great way to use the DTOs, but it's still working. It's still fine if you want to create a quick proof of concept. Now, if you invoke the API, you don't have the ID anymore, even for students. Of course, a custom mapper is more expensive in terms of code. It will take more time, but it's still a great way to modify your DTOs and to map things accordingly to your logic. Okay, because I don't want to focus on DTO and strange patterns, and there are a lot of ways you can use map struct or custom mapper, as I said before, but I don't want to show this inside these lessons, so I'm going to go back to the previous situation where we don't have the DTO. Great, I cut the part where I'm going to roll back all the changes. Now we are without the DTOs, and remember to delete these folders and just a quick check, go inside your pom.xml and be sure that you don't have the dependency that we added before to handle the mapping logic. Great.